Quasi here, and in today's video, I want to share with you the 3 biggest epiphanies I've had over the last 3 days. And I completely took off from society and I retreated out into the woods like a monk. And I just spent the whole day doing nothing. And basically, I want to share with you the 3 biggest lessons I've learned, as I think it'll be very, very valuable for you in this day and age. So make sure you stick around to the very end of this video. Without further delay, let's get started. So over the past 3 days, I drove up north about 200 miles, around a 2-hour drive to Vero Beach in Florida. And it's this quaint little area, and I stayed at an Airbnb, and the guy had 300 acres of land, and he had this little cottage in the corner, little cabin, and that's the place I was staying at, which is far up north from Fort Lauderdale, which is where I live. Now, as I drove up there and as I was staying there, as soon as I arrived, I was like, oh shit, there's nothing here. The nearest gas station was even 20 miles away. So that was quite a change of scenery for me. But I made a conscious decision to do this because every single quarter, I like to take a vacation, a mini vacation, maybe like 3 days to a week long, just to take a step back, re-perspectivize and reflect on what's happened, where I'd like to move forward to. Not just in business, but also in life. And your life and your business, as you know from this channel, are pretty much connected. So I like to do that, but usually I take a trip with my wife to some place, some vacation, places we've never been to enjoy. But this time I decided to do something completely different, just to test it out and see what it would be like to disconnect from social media, disconnect from society in general. Now, this was an incredibly boring but rewarding experience for me, and I learned a lot of things. And I'm going to be sharing with you the 3 biggest lessons I've learned. So, yeah, what you'll notice is right now your mind is engaged, always in activity, right? Like when you're in your comfortable environment, when you're at home, when you're at work, and environments that you've been in before, you sort of have these optimal defaults, and you sort of have these habits and things that you just unconsciously default to. Maybe you'll just pick your phone up. Maybe you'll just go and turn on the TV without even knowing it. You take a certain path to even work every single day, and you never take a different path, right? And, you walk a certain way to the fridge, and you open a certain side of the fridge door. So all of these patterns have been ingrained within us, and these patterns, these habits are making us more and more unconscious every day. They're very, very necessary because it reduces the energy that you need to, be conscious and develop a new way of being, a new routine. But over time, this also becomes a huge limitation because you just keep doing the same thing over and over again, and you become more and more mindless. So as you live in a certain routine, this is why taking a vacation, taking some time off, doing something completely left field from what you've been doing is so important for me. The biggest epiphanies I've had, the biggest realizations I've had were when I just didn't do the status quo, and I just took off and I did something completely different. To give an example of the first time I ever did that was when I was trying to grow my business. I was trying to get some clients and make some money and be able to leave my full-time engineering job and be able to do what I want. And the more I'd focused on business and forced myself to do the work and get a particular result, the harder it was, until one day the pressure built up so much. It was so painful that I just said, you know what? To hell with all of this. I'm just going to go to the park and sit. And I just sat there for the whole day. And when I got back, everything started to fall into place. I had clients hitting me up from the past. They were like, yeah, I want to join. I'm ready to join now. And I was like, wow, I didn't expect this to happen. So when you take some time off and you just do something completely left field and take your mind off all of the things you've been putting your mind on, the resistances that you built up, first of all, they dissolve, right? They just automatically, it's that period of focusing and defocusing. When you defocus, you become receptive, okay? So that's why I like to take this time off every single quarter, just to shake things up, get some chaos and some order. So have some chaos within the order, which is very, very important. So yeah, just to give you a highlight of what I basically did in that cottage that was 20 miles from anywhere, most of the time was spent either reading, reflecting, or walking in nature. There were a lot of bugs out there. It was kind of scary. And the silence too. At nighttime, it was pitch black. It was very, very scary. It's something that you're not used to. So yeah, let's get to the 3 big lessons I've learned. Okay. Lesson number one that I learned was in understanding that simplicity is key. If you look at businesses, if you look at people, if you look at how life is unfolding, everything is hierarchical. And I learned this lesson through reading two books. First was Think Simple. The other one was Systems Thinking. Now, in Systems Thinking, the author talks about hierarchies and how every single system, its ability to become more and more complex is a natural path. So every single system strives to create more and more complexities, and it creates this hierarchy. I think there were three concepts she talked about. I can't quite remember which one it was, but let me just check it out. Okay, so the concept she talked about wasn't hierarchies, but it was self-organization. And she says the capacity of a system to make its own structure more complex is called self-organization. So, a business begins as a one-person business. Then it grows into a more of a complex structure as it scales up. And, within this scaling up, within this complexity, companies, people start to lose sight of the power of simplicity, right? So complexity from this sense is the end stage. Being complex means that you have less potential to evolve, right? So please think about this for 1 second. Being simple and having a simple structure means there is potential. There is room for growth. If you're simple, you can grow. If you're complex, you cannot grow. You'll be dissipated in many different directions. So simplicity and focus has been one of the cornerstones of my life and our business here at realitycreator.com. There's a reason why I only offer one product right now. I don't sell anything else. No, let's do this and let's teach you business coaching. No, we only work with entrepreneurs and help them scale their businesses by changing their mindsets, by helping them upgrade their internal worlds. That's the only one thing that I've been doing since the conception of this business. I've been very, very reluctant to add another product and do something else because it's very easy to get lost in that. It's very easy. Complexity is very easy because it doesn't require any thinking. If you want to take something and remove a lot of different things. So I want you to think about it this way. When you take an exam and there's a question and it's like, oh, please list like 2 things that will help this function do that. And you list 4 or 5 things because you're like, I don't know which 2 things are correct. It's easier to list 4 or 5 things because you don't know the 2 correct things. Right? I used to do that when I used to take exams. So complexity is very, very simple. It's very, very easy, not simple. Simplicity is actually harder. It's harder to simplify things, but it's much more fulfilling and it gives you much more room to grow. So if you look at even cleaning out your wardrobe, it's so difficult to just throw away old stuff because you've made ties to it, right? So when you simplify things and get rid of stuff and eliminate stuff, it now gives you more space, more room to grow. So that's a huge realization that I've had, an epiphany that, a re-realization, if you will, I've had during this trip. Number 2, what I've learned again and again and again, this is a lesson I keep coming back to, is that the journey really is internal. You'll find all of these books, you'll find all of these shows, tactics, movies, and every social media, the next thing, the next shiny object to try. And they're all great. That's the problem. The problem is they're all great and they all work, but you just can't focus and double down on one of them, right? So when I say the journey's internal, in my sense, what I realized was I was always looking for the next book. I was always looking for the next piece, the next thing to do, and the next thing to try. What can I do different? What can I try different that'll help me grow just a little bit more? Right? So that's what I was always thinking about. And it's really easy to get lost in this seeking mindset. So I want to give you an example of this. Let's say you're not clear, right? You are unclear about where you want to go. Instead of turning inward and looking at that which is unclear and observing that and letting go of that, what we naturally do is, okay, I'm unclear. What can help me get clearer? Let's read all of these books. Let's do all of these things. Oh, I don't know a business tactic. Oh, let's try all of these marketing strategies. Let's try the Facebook group. Let's try, the ads. So it's very, very easy to do that again. So all of these three lessons I'm sharing with you, they kind of tie together, right? Like this internal journey also ties in together with thinking simple. Because if you go internally and you want to let go of resistance, you've just got to let go of everything until the true essence of it remains, right? So that's what simplicity is. So for me, I've learned that this journey truly is internal. Like you can't, after a certain point, you can't just copy and paste and try to do what everyone else is doing. You've got to understand what you really want and double down on that. Sometimes I used to forget that, it's not about the revenue that you're making. It's about what you love to do. And when you think more and more about the money, you forget more and more about why you got started with this in the first place, and you lose the love for it. Most successful athletes, like Michael Jordan, in this documentary I watched, it's called The Last Dance. He talks about this concept, and he says, some interviewer asks him, Michael, what's the secret to your success? And he's like, I love the game. I fell in love with the game. And so when you fall out of love with the game, then it's time to remind yourself why you got into this in the first place. Because it's so easy to get lost in, what can I get? What can I get? What can I get? How many success stories can I get? How much revenue can I generate this month? Instead of doing the thing that got you started in the first place, what you really love, right? That's number 2. Finding out what you love. Finding that internal thing that drives you. The journey is internal. Number 3, thinking longer term. This is something that I got lost in a lot. And when you look at your goals that you have in your life, you're always trying to achieve it as soon as possible, instead of thinking about what you want to create for the longer term. And a huge problem this creates is that if you're only thinking shorter term, you're only going to be optimizing for shorter term. So for example, if you're a business owner and you're trying to make a high revenue month, you'll probably do some discounts. So if you look at companies like JCPenney, that's why they went out of business, because they were just doing discounts after discounts, and the company's brand got cheapened. And then they try to change what they're doing. They're like, oh man, discounts aren't working. And then they, halfway through changing that strategy, not even completely going into it, they reverted back to this strategy. And they ended up with no customers because their old customers left once they changed the strategy of cheap to going premium. And then they were never there when they went from premium back to cheap. So as a business owner, it can get really easy to lost in. This month, I want to hit this revenue. So I want to do this promo and that promo, which cheapens your brand, So when it cheapens your brand, you're only thinking about the short term. So it begins like this. You operate from the beingness, from the place of being of let's achieve short-term success. Then your actions reflect, what can I do to get some short-term success? What can I do to hit a big revenue month this month? And then the consequence is you get short-term success. You'll hit a high revenue month this month, but next month you probably won't. The efficacy of your short-term promos and strategies, they slowly start to die out. As opposed to if you're focused longer term, you'll grow slower. You will. You won't get the quick wins and the high dopamine spikes. But over the longer term, customers will value your brand more. People will respect you more. And people will mature into buyers eventually. The right people will come. You'll attract the right people. Another example is if you're thinking short term and you, like for my business, right? If I keep posting testimonials like, oh, this person made 30K a month within 5 days of joining, then it's going to start attracting people who want to get a quick result within 5 days of joining the program. That's not the kind of people I want to work with in the first place, right? The very reason the people who came in got results really quickly was because they were focused in the longer term anyways. They weren't focused on creating something in the shorter term. They were focused on, okay, what can I create in the longer term? And when they let go of needing that short-term success, it comes, right? When you let go of resisting the short-term success, then it shows up for you. So what's meant for you will show up for you ultimately anyways. So that's another thing. If that didn't make sense, another example I can offer you is if you look at oil industries. Whenever someone finds an oil mine and, oil industries come in, they set up shop, they immediately want to extract as much oil as they can as quickly as possible. And when they do that, since oil is a non-renewable resource, when they extract it too quickly, now it doesn't allow them enough time to find more oil reserves or build, better things, because they've already extracted everything from the earth, right? Instead of working on sustainable growth, they're optimizing for quick, fast growth, which also causes people to lose jobs if they haven't found another mine in the meantime. So, let's say you have 1%, a goal of 1% growth versus 5% growth. At the 5% growth, you'll be extracting oil from the earth very, very quickly. Much quicker than at 1%, 5 times quicker than at 1%. So that 1%, if you were to instead extract at a rate of 1%, that would give you more time for this industry to thrive, because it now buys you more time to think about other things you could be doing, renewable resources you could be investing in, finding other mines, and keeping these jobs, the people who are losing all of these jobs, keeping this industry alive instead of just being a one-hit wonder industry. Okay, so yeah, those were the 3 biggest lessons that I've learned throughout this trip, and I'll be taking more of these trips. If you haven't taken a trip like this just to be on your own, just to be alone for a couple of days without social media, because it was an enlightening experience. Like I said, at first it was super boring. You sit there, you have nothing to do. You're like, okay, what next? What next? And the mind is looking for that next activity to distract itself with, instead of going within and seeing what's happening, right? I definitely encourage you to do something like this if you get the chance, even if you take like a day off, like on Sunday, and you go to a park and you just sit there. Definitely do that. It's an enlightening experience. Let's do a quick recap of what we talked about. So basically, I took a trip to the forest. It was fun. It was great. It was boring, but it was rewarding. 3 big lessons that I learned. Number 1, simplicity is key. Simplicity allows potential for growth. Complexity allows no potential for growth. Okay. Number 2, the journey is internal. It's very easy to hook onto the next thing. For me, I always distracted myself with social media whenever I was feeling internal angst. Like, nothing will relieve your internal angst. You got yourself into this mess. Only you can get yourself out of it. Seriously. Like, this anxiety, this pain, it's you unconsciously holding on to things. I've made lots of videos about it. I'll probably make more videos about it too. If you just click up here, there's a little eye, or I'll put in the link in the description below on how to let go. Because if you don't let go, if you keep holding on to things, you'll close yourself off from more experiences. You'll close yourself off from opportunities that are already there. You won't be able to see things that are right under your nose. Okay, this is very important. This is the fundamental. This is why I focus on this. This is why I teach this, and not the strategies and tactics, because if you don't solve the internal problem, nothing externally you get matters. If you're very, very wealthy, if you're very, very rich, but internally you feel like shit, you want to kill yourself, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day, right? If you can't, success, what's that Tony Robbins quote? Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And I truly, truly stand by that. That's number 2. Number 3, thinking longer term. Longer term thinking is so powerful that Jeff Bezos, one of the most successful entrepreneurs in our generation, he went ahead and built a 10,000 year clock. He has this clock in this mountain, and I read about this in the Bezos letters, that ticks once every year and chimes once every 100 years. It's a 10,000 year clock. That's crazy. He's always been thinking longer term. So try your best, because, many of these might not be applicable for you if you're starting up. You might just want to do the promo and just push it, but see what you're sacrificing. If you can allow yourself, the more time you can allow yourself, the better, right? So take these in consideration. There's a balance. It's different for everyone, but these are core principles that I want you to reflect on. And with that, thank you so much for watching. Till next time. Peace.